Well, hello, everyone. It's Doug here. This is the first time we've done this. We did a live premiere just moments ago for the second half of the first episode of Reclaiming Retro, my journey into the Atari 2600, talking about my childhood. I grew up with the Atari, and then pivoting to my quest, which has been going on for many, many years now, to try and find the original Atari 2600 console with all of the correct parts and pieces, the most difficult to find of which was that joystick controller, the Atari CX-10 controller with that hexagonal disc. And sure enough, as you can see, the big reveal we just had, we did, in fact, find the controller, at least one of them. It was intact. It survived a crazy cross-country shipment, and we have it. It is in possession, in the collection now. And so it's a very exciting moment here today. I can tell you without any hesitation, I have been hunting for one of these for many, many years, quote unquote, in the wild. So what I mean by that is I really wanted to find one outside of just kind of cheating and going to like a high-end video game auction, or even when you talk about eBay, frankly speaking, maybe once, maybe twice a year, one will come up, either in a complete set or on its own. That's how difficult this is to find, but I wanted to actually find one outside of eBay. So that's why it took me so many years, so many different hunts and all that good stuff. But we finally found it, finally got in the collection. But you know what's interesting here is the quest actually isn't over. There's a lot to Atari. Like I mentioned in the videos, there's an awful lot to Atari. And we're going to play some Atari 2600 too. If you have a favorite game and you want to see me try it out, or your favorite Atari game, jump on into chat and let me know what it is and I'll play it. So that's why you can see the Atari, albeit the Atari emulator, up on the screen. We do have that Heavy Sixer Atari. I haven't had a chance to thoroughly clean it out and fix it up to make it electronically sound, but I'll be doing that in the not-too-distant future. Anyhow, like I said before, what's interesting about this quest is it's not actually over. To piece together the complete first-run Atari, I still need the original chess piece box, the different paperwork and manuals that come with it, the cardboard insides, which are common to a lot of different versions of Atari, so that one won't be as challenging. And then, of course, if I really want to go for the 100%, completionist route, I would need to find a second Atari hex disc because, of course, there were not one but two joysticks packaged with the original Atari 2600. So we have made a great step forward in the quest today, but the quest actually isn't over. And of course, like I said, with all things Atari, and I think we might actually, in the future, I have a list of different topics that I want to cover in the Reclaiming Retro series, and one of them is the Sears-specific Atari sets. Right from day one, Sears had its own branded version of Atari called the Atari Telegame System, and it, too, had similar manufacturing from the original Atari. And if we really want to go down the rabbit hole, if I find another Atari hex disc, then I can start all over and try and piece an original Sears system together. The very first of which also had hexagonal discs, but they said Sears on them. So talk about a challenge. That just takes the difficulty from 10 to like 11. But we'll see. It certainly provides fodder for videos, entertainment, and stories, probably for years to come. So by no means is this the end of our story. It, quite frankly, is probably just the beginning. So there you go. Like I said, we're going to spend a few minutes here just talking about the episode. If you have any questions about it, thoughts, or you want to just talk Atari, you're more than welcome to jump into chat, and we'll certainly have that conversation. And we'll spend a little bit of time playing some Atari. I've fired up the Stella emulator, which is probably the most mature and well-equipped emulation solution for Atari. When you're doing streaming and stuff, it's not practical to actually wire up a 1977 Atari to the streaming computer, so we do have to rely on the emulation, but nonetheless, we're here. So we're going to play a little bit of Atari. I've randomly picked a game. This is Kangaroo, which is a port of an Atari arcade game. If I can get my controller to connect, that would be great. I wonder if the battery's dead. Hold on. One moment, please. Oh, boy, wouldn't that be delightful? Look at that. It looks like perhaps my controller has crossed the rainbow bridge, as they say. That's what happens on live TV, folks. That's what happens when you're doing live television. So I'm going to ask my producer, Cassandra Hammerstone, if she would be so kind as to hand me 2 AA batteries. And we'll go ahead and... thank you so kindly. We'll go ahead and reset the batteries on here. What was I going to say? So I hope you did enjoy the episode, the first and the second part. This is the first in what I'm hoping will be an ongoing series where I kind of cover retro gaming topics with a little bit of a twist. I see that the vast majority, there we go, of retro gaming content is just carbon copies of one another, of talking about Nintendo specifically, and or the financial aspect of retro gaming, most notably hip-checking grandmas at yard sales to get cheap games from them to resell on eBay or your store. And I've always felt that retro gaming is a lot more than how much money you're making off of it. So I feel like it's been lost the last few years, the art of actually talking about the games and not just the money. So that's what the goal of Reclaiming Retro is, and why I chose that phrase very carefully, Reclaiming Retro. I do want to, on YouTube, reclaim retro gaming from the hip-checking grandmas, the reseller community. So that's the goal. Anyhow, let's play a little bit of Atari. Do we not have this thing hooked up proper? Oh, hold on. I got to put the mouse where it's going to go. There we go. So here we got Kangaroo. Like I said, this was an arcade game, Kangaroo, back in the early 80s, an Atari game. And it, as you can see, it's sort of, I guess you could say, if you, I get hit with the dots. This is best described as if you took, so your Kangaroo has a little boxing glove and can punch these protagonists, which are monkeys, who are throwing apples at you, if I recall correctly. And your goal here is to get to the top of the screen and rescue your baby kangaroo, who just got pelted in the face while I was rescuing the kangaroo. So I guess that makes me a pretty crappy parent. So anyhow, this is basically a ripoff of Donkey Kong. If you take Donkey Kong and you replace Mario with a largely absentee kangaroo mother, you have Kangaroo. So that's the game. But again, just to kind of do get us started here, I'm going to fire up the emulator and try and find something else to give a go here. One moment. There we go. And that is in the background while I'm reconfiguring the emulator. That is the actual Atari chess piece box that you're looking at behind me. Oh, there we go. There's the emulator. And we have all the different games for the Atari on here. Oh, goodness gracious. What to try. There's a lot of games that were iconic for famous and infamous in Atari, right? And we can kind of just walk through a couple of them. Do we start with the low points of Atari? Probably not. Let's start with the high points, right? Of course, Atari came with the game Combat, which was a 2-player game where you would shoot tanks and airplanes. I don't have a second player here, so it would be kind of a silly thing to demonstrate. There were some classic games like Asteroids and Space Invaders, really good ports of the Atari games, of the arcade games of the time. So Space Invaders is a great example. Let's see here. Space Invaders. Where do we have Space Invaders? This should be it. Yep. There we go. There we go. Space Invaders. I believe that is, yeah, that's about right. Okay. Now, I remember the arcade Space Invaders was one of the very first quote-unquote arcade games that showed up in America, right? Let's go back to the mid-'70s, if you want to go back that far, the mid-1970s. The idea of playing a game that had video representations of objects on a television screen, and that's what these old Space Invaders machines were. They're actually just an old television set with some electronics to create these images. And prior to Space Invaders, you had Pong games. Everyone, no matter how old you are, you've probably at least seen references to Pong, the black and white paddle game where you'd have just two I guess panels, you would call them, that would bounce a ball back and forth, kind of like tennis. And that really took the world by storm in the 70s, because that was the first time someone had a coin-operated television where instead of watching something on TV, you would interact with it. And it was crazy. Every bowling alley, every bar in, let's say, the mid to late 70s had a Pong machine in it. And then you had this game, which was state of the art because it was actually in color. It was, even if not real true color, it was simulated color with a little plastic overlay over the TV set to give you the idea of that. In here, Space Invaders came out in the States, and it took the world by storm. Pac-Man came about a year or two later, but this was the original game, along with Asteroids, another Atari classic, that just really kind of birthed the video game, arcade gaming movement in the United States. Here we go. And so when you're down to that last invader, they tend to go faster and faster, and each wave, as you can see, with these invaders, they start closer and closer to you, so you have less and less time to react, obviously, to their incoming fire, and to protect yourself. There we go. So this is clearly one of the all-time classics. It's one of those things where, oh boy, if you were born, if you're under the age of 30, you really never had this experience. You likely never experienced a Space Invaders machine, an arcade machine. You may have seen them in TV or movies, but you may not have actually played an authentic one. And quite frankly, you may have never had exposure to these original Atari games and the graphics therein. And so it's kind of, I find that the older I get, the more fascinated I am. Just how much video game history has kind of been lost from generation to generation. I mean, as I said before, virtually everyone, no matter what your age, you've been exposed to Nintendo, Mario Brothers, you've been exposed to Super Nintendo and Sega, Genesis, and everything that came after that. But you just really don't have a lot of history and a lot of accounting for what came before the Nintendo Entertainment System. And again, that's one of the things I really want to try and achieve with this series that I'm going to create, going back a little bit further into video game history and looking at how these games impacted me, and I think those around me at the time and those in my age group, and really bring a different perspective. I mean, no disrespect to the 20-somethings I see on YouTube who do retro gaming content. and I appreciate your passion for history and your enthusiasm, but at the same time, the subject matter that you're covering existed before you were born. So you just didn't have the same experience that folks my age had. So I'm really hoping that what I can accomplish again with this is to kind of bring a new perspective. Ironic that in the talking about history, bringing a fresh perspective in, but I think I have that. And so I do want to do more content talking about things like Atari, some of the other systems that came before the golden age of retro gaming. We have some episodes that I'm sketching out that go into old computer systems that were all the rage back in the 80s and 90s. I think you're going to really like it. If you enjoy this sort of thing, if you've enjoyed watching me kind of goof around and playing Wordle for the last year, I hope you'll enjoy taking a ride with me into a different subject in a different place, because that's really what we're looking to do with Reclaiming Retro. Again, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be lighthearted. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but I do want to give you something that's a little different. You can only watch, so many videos talking about Super Mario Brothers, the history of Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog before it gets a little bit stale. And let me be clear about something, too. Reclaiming Retro is not a replacement or a substitute for anything on this channel, on Dougman's Land. We do intend on continuing to do the daily Wordle videos for the foreseeable future, unless the good folks and the owners of Wordle do something to preclude me from doing that. We do obviously intend on continuing on that. It's a lot of fun. It's got a big community, and I love puzzle games and word puzzles, so that's not going anywhere, folks. Our weekly puzzle word game live streams are not going anywhere. This is new content that will be going alongside the daily Wordle. So just to make that abundantly clear for those who might have been wondering if we're just going in a new direction. That's not actually what we're doing here. So there you have it. Again, Atari, my first system growing up. So happy that we've made some serious inroads into the collection for that. As I continue to find more treasures, we'll continue to make some more content talking about it, showing it off, getting into some of the things that I feel are almost like lost information and lost knowledge. I mean, before we filmed this first episode, I looked on YouTube and there was practically zero information or content about those original Atari joysticks. It was like lost knowledge. And while granted, there's some really cool forums like Atari Age, and very dedicated niche Facebook groups. We're talking about smallish communities, that are very insular and have all this information, but it's not necessarily something that someone who is not deeply familiar with Atari would know what the groups are, what those communities are. So I'm trying to unearth a lot of this insight and this information and present it to a wider audience. That's kind of the objective here as well. The Bussin' Crew, how you doing? Thanks for coming by, and hope you enjoyed the conclusion to the Atari Holy Grail unboxing earlier that we just watched at the top of the hour. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to doing some more of these. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think what we'll do is maybe we'll kind of do something similar where we'll create episodes. Maybe we'll do premieres from time to time and play some games after, depending on what system. And, oh, hey, another thing, too. If there is a retro gaming topic you would like to see me take on and cover on Reclaiming Retro, please feel free to either jump in chat or in comments on the video on demand for this stream, and let me know what would you like to see me take as a subject, and I'll be happy to look into that. And that's another part of this. I do wish for this to be kind of a communal experience, and put together a really fun little corner of YouTube and the internet. So having said that, we just want to do a quick little stream just to kind of, again, kind of go a little bit deeper into what we were doing here, what the goals were with Reclaiming Retro, and where we want to go forward. And we will be venturing forward with Reclaiming Retro in the weeks and months to come. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate everyone who likes and subscribes to the channel. We are coming very close to the mark of 1,000 subscribers. I am humbled and honored that you are all willing to join this little community. We have something very special planned in the works that I'll be talking about a little bit more on the channel to celebrate when we get there. It'll be a lot of fun. And once again, thank you for watching, whether you're watching the Wordle, the Quordle, the other various puzzle content, Reclaiming Retro, or all of the above. I really appreciate you hanging out and seeing what I've got to offer, and I can't wait to see you again next time. So until then, have a good one, and we are out for now. Goodbye.